For over 7 decades, a mysterious archive sealed deep within the royal estate has remained untouched, guarded by layers of royal privilege, political fear, and whispered warnings. But just 1 minute ago, Prince Edward did what no monarch, no heir, and no council member dared. He unlocked it. What lay inside wasn't just historical curiosity, it was the ticking heart of a truth so devastating it now threatens to dismantle the entire royal line. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. For years, the palace corridors have echoed with half-spoken rumours of a vault hidden within Windsor's most restricted wing, a place referenced only in hushed tones as Appendix Windsor Ninth courtiers dismissed it as myth. Historians were warned away, and aides who asked too many questions found their careers quietly ended. Yet the whispers persisted, growing louder with every unexplained delay, every sealed memorandum, every moment when truth seemed intentionally rerouted. The idea that something powerful enough to fracture succession itself had been locked away became an open secret, one everyone sensed but no one was permitted to confirm. Prince Edward, long underestimated and often sidelined, stepped into that silence with unsettling resolve. Acting under what he later described as a personal oath to truth, he bypassed protocols designed to be unbreakable. He did not inform King Charles. He did not consult Parliament. He did not seek counsel from the Royal Legacy Council. This was not rebellion. It was conviction sharpened by years of quiet observation. Edward knew that once the seal was broken, there would be no retreat, no polite reburial of inconvenient facts. The monarchy would have to confront whatever had been hidden in its own shadow. The vault itself had been locked by Queen Elizabeth II under an emergency protocol during the Cold War, a time when stability was treated as a national weapon. Only 3 people were ever said to know its contents, bound not just by duty, but by fear of what disclosure could unleash. Those 3 are now gone. Their silence, once protective, has become a liability. And Edward understood that the longer the truth remained buried, the more catastrophic its eventual emergence would be. Timing, however, is everything, and Edward's decision did not occur in a vacuum. It came just days after Catherine was granted expanded succession advisory powers, a move that quietly shifted the balance of influence within the royal household. To some, Edward's action felt like a challenge. To others, a warning. Inside the archive, reports speak of letters written in a trembling but resolute hand, paternity results sealed decades ago, and a handwritten declaration from a former monarch that directly contradicts the accepted line of succession. Each document alone would be explosive. Together, they form a narrative the crown has spent generations trying to outrun. As Edward emerged from the vault, the weight of what he carried was not merely historical. It was personal, constitutional, and irreversible. The monarchy, so carefully curated to project certainty, now stands exposed to a question it has never truly answered. Not who should reign, but who has always had the right to do so. But the question burning across Britain tonight isn't just what was found, but why Prince Edward chose this exact moment to reveal it to the world. Buried beneath decades of dust and royal silence, a faded envelope marked to be opened only upon grave constitutional crisis. Shaken the monarchy to its foundations. Inside, not 1 but 2 signed letters, one from Queen Elizabeth II herself, and another from King George VI, warn of a lineage error that could nullify the legitimacy of the current throne. It was the kind of envelope meant to outlive wars, scandals, and shifting governments, hidden so deeply in the royal archive that even those tasked with preserving the monarchy's continuity weren't aware of its existence. Double sealed with the royal cipher and the unmistakable wax crest of George VI, the envelope lay buried under files marked Security Protocol Windsor and classified Sovereign Authority. It wasn't unearthed by accident. Prince Edward, after unlocking the archive, followed an index marked with only 1-word deviation. What he found behind that coded label now stands to collapse the very line that's ruled for nearly a century. The contents were never meant for public view, not in the way Edward has now forced into the spotlight. The first letter, unmistakably penned by George VI during his final year, laid bare a truth suppressed even before Elizabeth ascended the throne. In that letter, George confessed to what he called a necessary deception, an unacknowledged child born during the height of World War II. The revelation was staggering. The child, his firstborn, had been sent away to protect the nation's morale, raised without titles or recognition, hidden under the justification of wartime sacrifice. In those lines, the king pleaded for understanding, asking that the monarchy's survival not be tethered to past shame. But what he asked next, what he demanded, was even more profound. The final paragraph read like a command cloaked in regret. If this child's bloodline endures, then the throne must one day return to its rightful branch. These weren't musings of a remorseful father. They were the sovereign words of a monarch, issuing a directive meant to override time itself. And if that wasn't enough, the letter was accompanied by a second, composed decades later by Queen Elizabeth II. In hers, the Queen confirmed she had become aware of the truth in the early 1970s through a series of confidential communications, including letters from her late sister, Princess Margaret. She admitted to receiving DNA evidence, securely stored in a reinforced tube dated 1979, confirming the bloodline as legitimate. But she made a decision that would now haunt the monarchy she chose not to act. Her reasoning: the future must weigh truth against unity. I entrust that burden to those who come after me. Edward, upon reading these lines, was said to have turned pale, reportedly frozen in the silence of the archive chamber for nearly 20 minutes. When he finally emerged, he carried with him a truth so massive it couldn't be spun, silenced, or buried any longer. Legal experts immediately warned that these letters were not merely symbolic or ceremonial, they had implications that could force the entire royal structure to be reviewed under constitutional law. A living heir, if validated, could not be ignored under the monarchy's own rules, no matter how inconvenient their existence might be. And yet, before the dust could settle, whispers began circulating about who exactly this rightful branch refers to, and whether they are already within the royal family, or someone hidden in plain sight, a forgotten heir, a rewritten past, and a present that never should have happened. The archive reveals a bloodline lost to time, descendants of a secret wartime marriage kept off royal records. And the shocking part? The line didn't end, it continued quietly, unnoticed, and far too close to the current royal circle for comfort. The papers unearthed within the archive were more than historical confessions. They were the unraveling of everything Britain believed about its monarchy. Tucked behind the letters from George VI and Queen Elizabeth II was a sealed transcript of a ceremony never before recorded in royal annals. A wedding conducted in secrecy, officiated by a clergyman bound to silence under the Official Secrets Act. It happened before George VI ascended the throne, at the height of the abdication crisis, when the entire monarchy tottered on the edge of collapse. The woman, of noble descent but considered politically volatile, had been removed from public life almost as quickly as she entered it. According to the transcript, the marriage was annulled under extraordinary pressure engineered by Winston Churchill and the Crown Office, who feared that public knowledge would ignite another constitutional crisis before the monarchy could recover from Edward VIII's abdication. But before the annulment was forced through, something irreversible occurred. A child was born, a son. According to the notes within the archive, the infant was declared non-existent by official decree and sent abroad under diplomatic cover to be raised anonymously in Switzerland. The records included diplomatic passports, falsified family documents, and a disturbing web of financial trails that sustained the child's upbringing. This child did not grow up in exile, but in ignorance. Shielded by layers of bureaucracy, his identity was never revealed to him. He became a teacher, a father, a quiet man in a quiet life, completely unaware that royal blood flowed through his veins. Until now, Prince Edward's decision to investigate the hidden bloodline wasn't sudden. According to insiders, it began 3 years ago, after a cryptic remark made in passing by Princess Margaret during one of her final private conversations with Edward. She spoke of a truth heavier than a crown and warned that the real heir would never wear it unless the winds of duty finally changed direction. That remark haunted Edward. He began cross-referencing names, travel records, and sealed royal correspondences. When he reached out to an international forensic lab under a false identity, the results came back with one chilling conclusion. The DNA of the man in Switzerland matched that of George VI's known lineage with no margin for error. The man, now in his early 60s, reportedly received the news with disbelief. Edward arranged to meet him in person in an undisclosed location near the Austrian border. According to a palace aide, the man broke down upon hearing who he was, not out of ambition, but fear. He hadn't asked for this, he hadn't prepared for this, he'd spent decades building a life without any knowledge of the shadow throne that loomed behind his birthright. 3 weeks ago, a second meeting occurred. This time, it included Prince William. Insiders say the room fell into a deep, prolonged silence when the man walked in. Edward firm in resolve, William unblinking, the heir uncertain, carrying a burden written in his blood, not in his will. But if this bloodline is real and legally superior, what does that mean for Prince William, Prince George, and the very crown Catherine has been groomed to inherit? As news of Edward's revelations tore through the palace corridors, one man's silence screamed the loudest: Prince William. Behind closed doors, fury clashed with fear. Was this betrayal by an uncle or justice long delayed? And most haunting of all, was everything he was raised to become now a lie? The moment the sealed archive's contents were made known to senior aides, the palace reportedly went into lockdown, not externally but internally. Every door became a wall, every whisper echoed like thunder. But amid the royal flurry, William remained curiously absent from the immediate reaction. Not because he wasn't aware, but because the news had shattered something deeper than protocol. According to palace sources, Edward did not warn William beforehand. There were no briefings, no discreet handovers, no whispered confessions across candlelit desks. William discovered the truth when the world did through the echo of Edward's voice and the ripple of constitutional shock. The betrayal to him wasn't just institutional, it was deeply personal. Within hours, a confrontation erupted behind the palace's fortified meeting walls. A senior official described it as the most emotionally violent exchange between royals in decades. William, visibly shaken, is said to have shouted, not just in anger but in pain, "You have dismantled everything our family stood for," he reportedly told Edward, "and you did it without once looking me in the eye." The timing, he argued, was deliberate. With Charles recovering in seclusion at Balmoral, and with public trust already strained, William accused Edward of sowing chaos in an already fragile monarchy. But Edward, known for his calm demeanor, reportedly responded with a chilling stillness. "I revealed what was already there. It's the silence that sowed the chaos." Catherine, ever the stabilizer, stepped in quietly as the brothers' argument reached a boiling point. Insiders claim she took William aside and reminded him of his greater role not just as a future king, but as the keeper of stability in an institution gasping for legitimacy. She urged patience, restraint, and above all, time to evaluate. "You must be the calm when the rest of the world is storm," she reportedly told him. And in that moment, William did not push back. But the fire behind his eyes, aides say, never dimmed. A high-level crisis meeting followed the next morning, notably without King Charles, who remained secluded and silent at Balmoral, issuing only one line to his private secretary, "Let them speak before I do." With the monarch in isolation and William not yet publicly responding, the burden of representation fell awkwardly on mid-tier courtiers and press officers scrambling to manage a storm, with no coordinated strategy. Meanwhile, drafts of William's official statement were being revised behind thick doors. Lawyers, historians, and strategists debated every line, every word. But as each hour passed without a royal voice, the speculation only deepened. Social media erupted, Parliament murmured. Foreign dignitaries issued calls for clarity. And while William's silence was deafening, Catherine was quietly preparing for a battle of her own, one that could either preserve or permanently fracture the monarchy she was born to guard. While the palace reeled from Edward's revelation, Princess Catherine was already 2 steps ahead. In a confidential Clarion Council briefing, she uttered 6 words that would change everything. Clarion Protocol is now active, proceed immediately. And just like that, the wheels of silent royal warfare began to turn. Clarion Protocol, a phrase whispered only in the highest echelons of royal crisis planning. A strategy forged not for media storms or political shifts, but for existential collapse. Crafted in the aftermath of the Diana years and sealed under Elizabeth's private succession charter, it was designed as the monarchy's last firewall, invoked only when legitimacy itself came under threat. Catherine, briefed on it years ago as part of her integration into royal statecraft, had never expected to speak those words aloud. But now, as Edward's disclosures threatened to reroute the line of succession, she activated the one mechanism that allowed the crown to act faster than Parliament, faster than press, faster than public panic. That night, without announcement or escort, Catherine summoned her most trust. Ed allies Lady Louise, emerging as a quiet force within royal planning, and Princess Anne, the iron strategist behind countless constitutional maneuvers. Behind a sealed chamber at Kensington, the trio held court not over etiquette but survival. They reviewed contingency maps, succession grids, legal tunnels of authority built by advisors long since dead. What they knew was clear: if the people lost faith in the line, the institution would not survive the scrutiny that would follow. And so Clarion Protocol permitted what few dared even imagine: a temporary override of Parliament through monarchical prerogative clauses buried in royal decrees dating back to George III. Within hours, emergency communication surveillance was deployed. The palace began monitoring media leaks, scanning for planted narratives, assessing which foreign advisors were circling the storm. Catherine's command was not out of panic, but precision. "This is not just about the crown," she reportedly told her advisors. "This is about the people's faith in it. If we lose that, there's no crown left to protect." She understood something many around her didn't. The monarchy was not upheld by tradition alone, but by belief, and belief was breaking. Behind palace gates, tension grew. Catherine moved swiftly to reassign key press officers, instituted a blackout on all unofficial royal commentary, and requested confidential profiles of the so-called heir's life, associations, and past records. At the same time, whispers emerged from within palace circles that Catherine was preparing something the monarchy had never attempted: an emergency televised address, not in defense of the family, but of the nation's right to transparency. Some speculated she might confirm the heir's legitimacy, others feared she might reject it outright. But most sensed that what Catherine would say next would define not just the future of the monarchy, but its soul. For just as Catherine moved to stabilize the monarchy, a final revelation from the archives sent shockwaves across the realm, one that directly implicated the king himself. Hidden behind a velvet curtain in the locked archive lay one final folder, stamped with the word obsidian. What it revealed wasn't just shocking, it was damning. A royal agreement signed by King Charles during his youth, promising to renounce his claim under a condition that has now been violated. The monarch himself is no longer the monarch, at least not legally. The folder's contents, thin in appearance but devastating in consequence, contained the forgotten echoes of a pact made in the shadows of crisis. In 1974, as Charles reeled from both public scrutiny and internal conflict, following his highly scrutinized involvement with Wales and the surrounding scandals of that era, he reportedly sought distance from the throne he never felt destined to occupy. In a moment of turmoil, one that now haunts the crown, he signed the Obsidian Accord. It was meant to be a protective clause, a personal escape hatch, a promise written under the weight of emotional exhaustion and political pressure. But what no one ever expected was that the condition outlined in that secret document would one day come true. The clause was chilling in its simplicity. Should an heir of superior legitimacy, one previously hidden from the royal record, ever emerge and be verified, Charles would immediately renounce all sovereign authority, without challenge or appeal. It was not a threat, but a surrender, signed willingly in the presence of two witnesses: the then Archbishop of Canterbury and a top-tier constitutional lawyer, both of whom have since passed away. The document was never public. It was buried, unindexed, behind a curtain in the most restricted section of the archive, as though the very idea of its existence was too dangerous to destroy, yet too destructive to be known. What makes the Obsidian Accord even more catastrophic is that Charles never rescinded it. Legal scholars reviewing its phrasing argue that had he made a formal public statement renouncing or voiding the agreement prior to accession, the accord could have been invalidated. But he didn't. Whether it was forgotten, ignored, or suppressed is unknown. But in the eyes of the law, as framed by the agreement itself, the moment a legitimate heir was confirmed through hereditary documentation and DNA authentication, Charles forfeited the throne. The palace, upon learning of the accord's exposure, released only a carefully worded statement. The matter is under constitutional review. No confirmation, no denial, just a cold echo of bureaucratic avoidance that only deepened the public's suspicion. Behind closed doors, insiders say the revelation has sent shockwaves not only through the family, but through the advisory class tasked with holding the monarchy together. If challenged in court, the accord could open the floodgates to unprecedented legal warfare, with the monarchy's very foundation now subject to judicial interpretation. No crown, no reign, no lineage is safe. And so, with the discovery of the Obsidian Accord and Edward's decision to unearth its truths, the monarchy stands not just weakened, but legally suspended. Every royal act from the past year now sits under a silent, growing cloud of doubt. Legitimacy itself has become a question mark. With Edward exposing the document and the monarchy teetering, all eyes turn to a single upcoming event: the emergency summoning of the Royal Legacy Council. It hasn't met in 26 years, but when it does, bloodlines tremble. The Royal Legacy Council, Britain's last firewall before dynastic collapse, was summoned behind Buckingham's iron gates. No cameras, no tea, transcripts, just heirs, oaths, and confrontation. What they discussed could fracture the monarchy or rewrite it. The weight of centuries pressed against the palace walls as the Royal Legacy Council convened. Known formally as the Sovereign Continuity Assembly, its purpose is singular: intervene when the line of succession becomes so entangled in legal and moral uncertainty that Parliament alone cannot arbitrate. Membership is tightly guarded. It includes senior royals, legacy clerics, constitutional historians, and palace strategists, each sworn to secrecy, each holding a vote that could change the future of the crown with a single signature. When it met last, it was over Diana's title rights. This time, the stakes were nothing less than the throne itself. From the moment the doors shut, tension was palpable. Catherine, poised and unshakable, sat at one end of the massive mahogany table. At the other, Prince Edward, flanked by counsel, his expression unreadable. The room itself became a metaphor. Two ends of the family, two visions of monarchy, and only one future could survive. The opening motion, delivered with surgical precision by a constitutional advisor aligned with Edward, proposed placing the so-called heir under immediate public legitimacy review. This would mean not just confirming his lineage through Parliament and independent courts, but publicly recognizing him as a constitutional claimant to the throne. The motion stunned half the council. Silence lingered until Princess Anne, rarely known for interjections, rose with fury veiled in elegance. "We do not surrender crowns to silence," she declared, her voice carrying the conviction of a generation that had kept the family stitched together through scandal and scrutiny. She challenged the timing, the political implications, and most pointedly, the risk of letting external forces redefine a lineage built on stability, not exposure. Her words shifted the room's energy, dividing allies and shaking confidence in what had once seemed a foregone conclusion. Despite Anne's rebuke, the council remained locked in gridlock. A tie seemed imminent until Prince Edward did the unthinkable. When his name was called for the deciding vote, he abstained. The man who had unearthed the archive, exposed the sealed documents, and brought the unknown heir to light refused to vote. Gasps reportedly filled the chamber. Some called it betrayal. Others saw it as a final act of defiance, forcing the monarchy to choose its path without his influence. "Let the crown decide its own future," he said before walking out. The chair of the council, shaken but composed, announced the verdict would be finalized within 72 hours. No press would be briefed until then. No names would be leaked. But already rumors were spreading like wildfire. The palace had hoped for quiet deliberation. Instead, it had ignited the loudest silence in modern royal history. But before the council could conclude its verdict, a leak to the international press sparked mass public uproar and forced the palace to act. In the digital age, monarchy no longer survives in silence. As the archive revelations spread, a tidal wave of public reaction erupted, dividing the nation in ways no one expected. Is this a royal betrayal or long overdue justice? And could the people now decide what crowns once dictated in secret? Within hours of the leak confirming the existence of the Obsidian Accord and the possible legitimacy of a forgotten heir, the streets around Westminster transformed into a battlefield of belief. Protesters gathered outside Parliament in unprecedented numbers, their chants echoing through the heart of the capital. Some waved placards that read "Right blood, right throne," demanding the crown formally acknowledge the unknown heir's lineage. Others hailed Edward as a patriot who risked everything for the truth, carrying banners with the words "Edward for Truth" in bold print. But not everyone stood behind him. Loyalists and traditionalists branded him a traitor, accusing him of tearing at the very fabric of the monarchy when unity was most needed. The same man who had once been considered the quietest royal now found himself at the center of the loudest reckoning the institution had ever faced. Online, the momentum was just as volatile. A petition demanding immediate recognition of the newly discovered heir crossed 5 million signatures in less than 24 hours. Commentators, journalists, and constitutional scholars flooded social platforms with competing narratives, dissecting every clause of the Obsidian Accord, every word of the leaked letters, and every silence from the palace. International media picked up the story with the intensity of a scandal that could redraw the landscape of not just Britain's monarchy, but every constitutional monarchy across the globe. Foreign leaders, while publicly restrained, were privately scrambling. Some expressed concern, while others, particularly in nations with historic ties to the crown, openly asked if they should now recognize a different sovereign. Inside the palace, the mood shifted from control to containment. The upcoming Jubilee events were abruptly postponed. Public appearances were cancelled under the vague pretense of security concerns. But the real threat wasn't external, it was emotional. The monarchy had always been a symbol of steadiness. Now it was. Engulfed in a storm of legitimacy, legacy, and identity. Catherine, usually the poised public face of calm, chose silence. Not because she had no answer, but because every word she spoke would be used as a weapon against her, against William, or against the throne itself. Yet behind closed doors, insiders described her as deeply pained, torn between her duty as the future queen and her instinct to preserve the institution for her children. The royal family's silence, however, only inflamed the nation's hunger for clarity. Every unanswered question became a rallying cry. Every day without a statement felt like abandonment. Public trust, already fraying from years of quiet scandals, now stretched to the brink. The monarchy had survived abdications, divorces, and political strife. But this was something else entirely. This was not about image. It was about truth, blood, lineage, and the power the people now believed they had a right to demand. But just as the storm raged at its peak, a single televised image stunned the nation and rewrote the story once again. In a moment that will live in royal history forever, Prince Edward appeared before the nation, standing not beside Charles, William, or Catherine, but beside the man said to be the rightful heir. Silent, unflinching. And by doing so, Edward shattered centuries of curated legacy in one frame. It began without pomp, without flags, without a palace backdrop. Just Edward, facing the nation with a calm born of conviction. His voice did not tremble, nor did he seek forgiveness. "I did not do this to destroy the crown," he began, pausing for breath as the nation collectively held its own, but to purify it. It was not a declaration, it was a reckoning. The silence behind him was filled by the quiet strength of the man standing at his side. No regalia, no royal seal, no security detail, and yet his posture told its own. Story. A man who had lived without power, without recognition, and now stood as a symbol of the truth the monarchy had tried to forget. Edward confirmed what many already suspected. The archive's revelations were not rumor, they were real. The bloodline existed. The heir lived. But in a move that stunned even his closest allies, Edward chose not to reveal the man's name. "I will not weaponize identity," he said. "Let the people, the laws, and the future speak his name, not me." That restraint, more powerful than any proclamation, sent a ripple through every living room, boardroom, and government chamber. For it wasn't just the content of Edward's speech, it was the weight of what he withheld. From Balmoral, King Charles responded with only 12 words. "The truth may hurt, but it will not end us." A cryptic message, layered with regret, resolve, and perhaps resignation. He did not deny. He did not protest. He simply acknowledged what was now undeniable. Meanwhile, Catherine, whose silence had drawn growing speculation, released a handwritten letter made public by her office. In it, she wrote, "Not of power, but of duty. My service," she penned, "was never to a title, but to the people." That remains unchanged. In those lines, she reclaimed her place not as a future queen, but as a moral centre in a storm where no one else had found footing. Within the hour, Parliament called for an emergency session. Constitutional advisors, legal experts, and royal liaisons were summoned to determine what had never been written in any handbook: how to proceed when the crown's bloodline has been broken and redefined in the public square. Some argued for abdication, others for coexistence. But no one denied that the monarchy could never return to what it once was. The illusion had shattered. What remained was something raw, more human, more vulnerable, and perhaps in its own way, more honest than ever before. And so, with the nation divided and history rewritten, one question remains: has the monarchy been destroyed or reborn through its most dangerous truth? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.